Welcome to episode 118 of the Aquarius podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed, and this episode is sponsored by Aquarium Co-op and their amazing Easy Flow sponge filters. So if you're looking for a bulletproof way to have filtration in your tank, I would highly suggest the Aquarium Co-op sponge filter. The components are available in green. We now also have black components. In addition to adding on black components, we have both coarse PPI sponge, but also a fine PPI sponge. So let's see here. Do I even have it in front of me? 20 PPI, I believe, versus 40 PPI. So two different porosities. You can run coarse, you can run fine. My personal preference is to run the coarse. But for the best sponge filter out there, Aquarium Co-op's coarse and fine sponge filters available in green and black colors. Now, with that being said, on to the interview. I think that went kind of okay. We're still recording. So today's date is Thursday, December 11th, 2025. My guest today is Anthony Armata. Anthony is the owner of DakuAquatics.com, an online site selling fish, shrimp, specialty Bucephalandra, and a variety of other aquarium plants. He also runs the wildly popular Daku Aquatics social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. So Anthony, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Randy. How are you, man?
I am doing fantastic. And I realized that the way I listed out those social media platforms, I think I like exposed my age in that TikTok was towards the back end of that as opposed to being towards the front, which I feel like if I was younger, I would have been like, well, freaking TikTok is the first one I'm going to talk about, right?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I actually started on Instagram and Facebook. That's where the bulk of my community is. So TikTok's great. There's still a lot of great people on TikTok, but it's definitely like younger generation, you know?
Mm-hmm. And the elephant in the room right now is your camera angle, which we've already kind of talked about, but you've got the streamer gamer like Twitch camera angle going. But as you've explained it, you can actually get both of your racks in view, as opposed to if you actually had it face on the way your offish is set up, is that we'll get your utility sink in the shot as well, which is not nearly as cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little bit cleaner with the side angle. So
yeah. That being said, I actually did shout out. We were talking about you on Deep in the Mole 2 days ago, and the fact that I'm almost positive you have a utility sink in kind of each of your fish areas, or is it just the garage that doesn't have one?
So the garage is right off of the laundry room, right? This whole operation's in my house for those listening that didn't watch the videos yet. So I have a utility sink in all three spaces, but the garage is in the laundry room.
Which the utility sink is like the unsung hero of the fish room, like not having to transport, a brine shrimp hatcher that you've already hatched out of and you need to clean, or like any type of just anything you need to do to clean off or rinse in a sink. Having a close proximity utility sink is just clutch, which feels like it needs to be its own decal sticker or like a shirt, like unsung hero of the fish room, established, I don't know, 1980 or something, and just have that white standard utility sink on the shirt. Feels like a move.
Yeah, if you think about like building out a fish room, you really have to build it around where your drains are going to be. So the sink is the first thing you plan into a fish room build, at least for me. So it's sink and drain, then the tank layout, right? So
yeah, no, for sure.
always make sure there's a sink in there because it's just, walking across any space trying to do stuff. I'm looking for maximum efficiency.
Yeah, right? And the utility sinks, I think they're only like $80 at Home Depot for the basic one. They're not very expensive at all, but the value and the convenience that it provides to trying to run a fish room operation, especially one as large as yours, is pretty darn important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which I never thought that we would kick this off by talking about a utility sink, but
engaging, very engaging.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, Anthony, Daku Aquatics, Corey and I, we were down in Florida last week, and we had the awesome opportunity to come to your home and visit with you and spend hours with you, hours of your time. Corey filmed a lot of content. I got a lot of B-roll and a lot of great photos. You've got some beautiful display tanks. You have awesome fish room setup, which is so much like breeder awesomeness going on. So to me, it's like a no-brainer that I wanted to have you on and talk to you about, the cool stuff that you're doing. So with that being said, Would you mind kind of giving us your origin story of, how did you get to the point where you've got this wild name of Daku Aquatics and you're sitting in front of a Yeti mic in an office?
Sure. Yeah. Well, origin story is probably similar to a lot of people in the hobby. I've always been into fish tanks, right? From a very early age. It was like the first thing I wanted. It was like dog, cat, fish tank, right? So I grew up with the standard 10-gallon loaded up with a far too large Pleco, Tetras, whatever I could get down at the local pet store. And then life happens. I played football, went to college, not for football, but, went to school. And then after that, got back into it once I got into my house because I finally had a space that I want to do 10, 15, 30 tanks. I'm up to 175 now, so it's a little crazy, but that was the natural progression. As far as where Daku came from, I told you guys when you were here, but I've been playing like World of Warcraft since release in 2004. And that was just the name that I cooked up when I was making my first character. And it's stuck with me. And that's another reason why I have like the streamer look, because I used to stream like raid nights and stuff like that. So I've always had this setup, and it's cool that I'm able to use it now in my business, right? Because Daku Aquatics is essentially my life's work now up until this point. So being able to do stuff like this is really fun. And I'm really grateful that you guys came over and I'm on the podcast. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. I'm curious about the gamer streaming thing. Was that just for fun to kind of like share with your raid buddies, or was it like, were you actually streaming to an audience on Twitch or one of the other platforms?
No, totally for just recording the video. I did stream live, but it was just for fun.
Okay.
It was nothing crazy. Yeah.
Okay. It'd be wild if you're like, yeah, my gaming life, I had 200,000 people following me, but my fish passion just took over. That would have been pretty wild.
I don't think I know there's a huge crossover in gamers and fish keeping, because a lot of, hobbyists kind of go into different realms, right? But yeah, I don't think I could segue a huge platform of gamers into a huge platform of fish tank nerds.
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty funny. And also, before we go too far down, well, I want to be very cautious of how far I go down the gamer nerdy rabbit hole with you, because you also have a passion for miniature painting, which I do as well. And so I think, I don't know, I looked at your tanks first, but I also immediately looked at your display case of awesome dwarfs and other miniatures that you have painted. So we nerded out and talked about that for a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. That's like my zen. Everything here is so hectic and crazy with the business, and even video games to some extent. When I play video games, it's like highly competitive. Like I want to play at the peak of my ability. But with miniature painting, I'm awful at it. Not awful, but not great.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I'll never be like Ninjon and some of the awesome like creators that can just like cook up amazing works of art. So that's like I don't have to perform hobby, right? I can just sit at my desk. All the fish tanks are around me, so I'm not too far from work, right? My work, quote unquote. And I can just zen out and paint. And that's like my favorite pastime, because it's really relaxing for me.
Which is kind of a bummer in that, and I think I experienced this too, probably Zenzo and Corey, in that fish tanks, like a display tank, is supposed to be something that's very calming, and I think they still are. But when you make your hobby your business, it kind of changes how you view a fish tank. So I could totally see how you need something even further away to kind of zen out on. And miniature painting, for those that have never done it, like it is a very therapeutic thing. You can do it in group settings with your buddies, just sit around painting, but also just by yourself. You're just focused in on the one task and putting paint to an object. It's sometimes you can look at it as color by number as well. I am not an artistic person whatsoever, but I find miniature painting to be really, really fun. So I don't know if you can kind of agree with any of those experiences of how your hobby has changed, with your business.
I never would have gotten this far if there wasn't that inherent like zen quality to fish tanks. I think the biggest draw for me with fish tanks though is creating something. It's that creative aspect, and then the ability to not just put it on a shelf like a miniature painting, right? Or a mini you painted. It's watching it grow and develop, watching the fish grow up, watching the plants thrive, right? And kind of the strategies you learn along the way on like, this isn't doing too well. How do you troubleshoot that? Like, there's green dust algae on this plant. I want to remove it. Is there a fish, a shrimp for that? You know, stuff like that. So the hobby, while it's very peaceful for me too, obviously with the workload, it gets crazy, but there's still plenty of times, like if I'm not miniature painting or I'm not hanging out with the family or whatever it is, I can look at a fish tank still and still just be like, this is awesome. And I know why I'm this far in the hobby, right?
Good.
You know what I mean? Why I pushed it this far.
Yeah, that's awesome. On the note of display tanks, now let me gauge and see if you're in the same place that I am in terms of like your enjoyment of the multifaceted hobby. If you didn't have the several of your display tanks, which you've got some really cool ones, would you still be enjoying the hobby as much with just the breeding aspect?
I don't know if it would be as much if I was just breeding fish, because like we discussed when you guys were here, I'm really like probably 60-40 plants and shrimp, you know, like just in my enjoyment of what I love in the hobby. And that's mostly because shrimp keep plants clean. So they're like the perfect pairing. But that said, if I were to take away like the Shodenai puffer tank that I have, the 75 gallon, I would be actually pretty upset because those are like my wet pets.
That is an awesome tank. That is an awesome tank.
Yeah. And I also, even though they love to take bites out of plants, I still put the hardy Anubias in there and I still try and plant it. And you see all that like Malaysian driftwood. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I would be upset if I didn't have those tanks. Okay. Matter of fact, there's been plenty of times where I've gotten so busy, like before I was able to hire somebody, where I was like, okay, I'm working 70, 80-hour weeks, like full stop. I really don't want to be maintaining these huge fish tanks. But then I realized that I love them so much that I would be upset if they were gone, and then I keep them. So
gotcha. Yeah, I wonder if myself, like once I get a fish room going again, and I can finally like satiate that itch to start working and playing with fish again on a breeding level, that after a couple years of that, I will then have the desire to like have that one, you know, awesome display tank, maybe get Shodentai puffers again, or you know, and just enjoy a larger tank that is fully planted out with actual purpose. Which, yeah, and it's probably, and again, it's probably just because I've been so long without a fish room that I just feel like this, I'm in this transient state of my hobby where I've kind of like been able to, you know, I've been able to get by with my office tanks, and then also kind of living vicariously through the Coop warehouse with our other tanks and the Project Beyonce tanks, where it's like, oh, I've now kept Shabunkin fish, right? Like that's been a lot of fun. Where now, like again, I'm just really itching at, okay, let's finish the basement, let's build out the fish room. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, no, I hear it stirring. I listen to your guys like podcasts and stuff. I love Deep in the Mulm, right? I love the business aspect because I don't get a lot of like business to business talk. So it's really refreshing to hear you guys yap about, you know, stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So I heard you really hyped about the fish room and Project Beyonce, which if you haven't watched that video, prepare you to roll your eyes as hard as possible. And yeah, no, I think you're well on your way to that fish room in Kentucky.
Yeah, I would, on the note of Project Beyonce, which again, I still feel like is such a natural name for it. Like, I guess I could have gone Project Golem. That would have been a good one, actually. With the one ring, that would have been good. So I don't know. I should have solicited in the comments, been like, all right, if you had a better alternative name for Project Beyonce, given that it's related to bio rings or bacteria, like let me hear it. Let me have at it. So
so funny.
Yeah. I guess to avoid Zenzo's rage, I'll just make sure they're all Lord of the Rings or sports related, and then Zenzo will like them. All right. So yeah, okay. So we got your origin story, and now what were your like tastes? And so you said you got a big old pleco, you had some tetras. Was there anything that you kind of gravitated towards? And when did the breeding start happening for you? Like, was it before you got the actual, your house right now with all the fish tanks? Like, were you like a high school breeder or like a middle school breeder kid?
Yeah, it was young, right? Then it
Okay.
was up until middle school. Then high school, I stopped for a little bit. But then when I got done with college, I picked up like 10. I picked up a couple of fluval flexes, the 5 and 3 gallon fluval flexes.
Flex is the square one, right?
No, sorry, fluval spec. Fluval spec.
The spec is what? Yeah, the flex has the round, the bow front going to it. Yeah, the spec.
Yeah.
That's what got me back into it. Was the little 2.5 gallon is what got me back into the hobby.
So I saw a forum post somewhere. I can't remember now. This is almost a decade ago, or maybe like 8 years ago, where people were showing off their like nano fluval specs, right? And I was like, okay, I'm in an apartment. This was before the house, right? I'm in an apartment. I can move this when I'm getting ready to move, right? So I was kind of worried about too many fish tanks in a place that I was going to have to pick up and go. So right away when I got back into it, I was like ready to go with a bunch of fish tanks. Like I was like amped up to like, okay, I'm diving back in. So I set up a couple of flexes. I got into CO2. I did the whole plant thing. And then I got like a betta fish, right? Just to kind of like make a nice display to see how well I can do like the new age high-tech planted tank setup, right? And then from there, I was like, okay, I really love shrimp. So I got a bunch of Neocaridina shrimp, right? Got the cherry shrimp first, put it in the fluval specs, and I made like 50 more. So then I was like, okay, these are worth money. Let's see if I can sell some shrimp, right? So I sold some shrimp like locally on Facebook Marketplace. And very early on, and partly the reason for my success up until this point, is I started on Instagram posting like a journal. So like every day or every 2 days, I would just take a quick, just 10-second to 30-second shot of what I was working on. And that's something cool. If you really want to deep dive my content, you can go back to like day one, like in the before times, right? And see like Daku Aquatics when he didn't have an automated fish room. And he was just like, I have a bunch of fish tanks and I'm water changing 30 tanks every 2 weeks, like manually with a bucket. So yeah, you can see that whole progression on my social media. But I never started social media or this business for like, oh, I'm going to be huge in this industry. I started it out of a deep passion for plants and breeding and shrimp. And it kind of just over time, the natural progression ended to where I am today. And I still have a lot of room to grow too. Like you've seen like the garage, that's my latest build out. Like that rack I just set up, that 24 tank rack, like that's just for more expansion. So there's a lot more to come. So I can't wait in like another 10 years to see like, wow, like from like a couple of fluval spec tanks to like 200 plus fish rooms in this house. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So overview wise, how many or what are the different species of fish that you work with?
So, wow, I can turn around and do this. So I have success. The main fish is rams, right? I breed a bunch of different rams. I have bred all different types of dwarf cichlids, but I stuck with the rams because I love their temperament. And I also love the fact how easy they are to net, right? Because I sell all of my fish online. So I used to breed a bunch of apistos, for instance, and they were really hard to net because they'd all go hiding in the back behind the sponge filter, right? So I breed a lot of rams because of their temperament. Out of all the dwarf cichlids, those are my favorite. Then I also breed a lot of celestial pearl danios, a lot of pseudomogill, different varieties of pseudomogills. I've bred emerald dwarf danios. I breed a bunch of pea puffers, clown killifish, different bristlenose plecos. So it's kind of whatever I'm feeling. So fish aren't like my main business, right? We discussed this a little bit while you were here. The plants are my main business, right? So the fish, I'm not like, oh my God, I better breed 1 million fish so I can pay my mortgage, right? It's like, I'm going to breed cool fish to the best of my ability for fun and see how it goes from there. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So there's like tons of projects. I'm working on sparkling gouramis. I'm working on whiptail catfish, right? So there's like a bunch of cool stuff that I'm trying. And yeah, I would say my bread and butter are definitely the Rams, CPDs, and the Luminatus, Pseudomogil Luminatus.
Yeah, and so if we were to kind of focus in on that, I think your Pseudomogil Luminatus. So I've, early on, before I had my fish room, when I had taken over one of our rooms in the house, the kind of the guest room, if you will, and that's
I
actually
remember that.
Yeah, that's what my wife spurred on to say, you need to get this out of the house, and yes, go ahead and build something in the garage. That's totally fine. But yeah, so I had a struggle with them eating their eggs, right? You have the spawning mop in there, they're doing their thing, they are laying eggs, but they just, within, I don't know how long, but fairly quickly, they're going in and they're eating their eggs. So if you're working a 9 to 5 and you're not in the house, you're leaving in the morning, they're doing their thing, and by the time you come back, you're maybe getting one egg, and then you're seeing the remnants of another like half-eaten egg, and you're like, oh, this is not very productive. So I struggled with them for a bit, and I think there were some, trying some other methods of having them in the tank and then letting them do their thing and then moving them out and just trying different strategies. But what you do, and I think we kind of joked that you called it the Daku method, or somebody coined it the Daku method. Maybe you did. I've never seen it before, so I'm totally cool with it being called the Daku method. But with a coarse sponge filter, so I just have a coarse intake sponge right here. You put this in the corner of a tank with nothing else in the 10-gallon with the Luminatus breeding group, and they're spawning next to, or basically kind of adjacent to, this sponge filter. And then you go ahead and unpack that.
Yeah, so that's pretty exact, right? So I noticed too that if I had just a traditional floating mop in a Pseudomogil tank, they'd spawn a lot, but they'd also be like in the middle of the mop eating the eggs that they just, laid. So I also noticed them spawning just on the back of the coarse sponge filter from Aquarium Co-op that I use in like all of my breeding setups, right? So I said, you know what? Let me pull the mop and just leave the sponge filter in the tank for 2 weeks, right? Because they hatch in about 10 to 12 days. So I left it in there for like 2 weeks, and then I took the whole sponge off of the sponge filter, put it in a hang-on breeder box, and just waited. And I was like, oh man, there are so many eggs that are stuck in the coarse sponge filter. So that's just the method that I cooked up, and I love it. That I don't, so a part of the breeding anything I want mantra, I also want to breed enough for when people get excited on my social media that I have some to sell and I'm not like perpetually sold out. So what's fun for me is breeding a lot of fish in a small space, like a 10-gallon. And in 3 rotations of the sponge filters on this Luminatus tank, for instance, I could hatch out about 100 to 150 fish in a month in one 10-gallon in a breeder box, right? And then I move them, once the oldest fish in the hang-on breeder box are too big, I move them to a 10-gallon grow out and I reset it. And it's a steady flow of Pseudomogil breeding. And that's been super successful for me. So I've done tons of videos on my social media where you can actually follow along with me as I swap out the sponge filters, put it in a breeder box. And I try and give out all the tips that I can for people. I'm not a huge fan of gatekeeping stuff. This is a hobby for fun, right? I want my business to thrive because I'm showing people awesome techniques for breeding fish and growing plants, and not because I'm hiding my secrets of how I can make so many. You know what I mean? So I'm glad somebody called it the Daku method because, I definitely cooked it up. That's one of the things that I figured out to, myself. And yeah, it's been really helpful to a lot of people so far.
Yeah. Like I said, I have never seen that before. And I think it's just phenomenal. And so it's literally that tank right there, the one in the center, the more black one without any plants in it. And that sponge filter, if that's the same one that was there last week, like you've got fry just swimming all around that thing, and it is awesome. And that's like another little thing that's just adding to the snowball of me wanting to start the fish room again. Of, oh my goodness, like this is so easy that's like an easy button. That's fantastic. Shameless plug. we now sell replacement sponges, right? So before it was a 1-to-1 relationship. You got one sponge with one sponge filter body, and that was it. And you probably had to buy multiples if you wanted to pull this off. But now you can order a sponge filter, or you can just order the corresponding replacement sponge filter, or just the foam alone to pull this off. So you can have 2 or 3 in rotation, and not really disrupt things without having to spend like, oh man, I got 2 extra bodies of sponge filters that I don't need. I just need the foam.
Yeah, all you need is 2. You don't need to buy 3 or more, because what I found most successful is just leave it in there for 12 days and then take the one from the breeder box with all the eggs already hatched and slide it right back onto the one that the fish are breeding on. So it's just 2 foams per sponge filter, and you have max breeding potential right there.
Nice. So yeah, that's awesome. And then we also talked about it's only the coarse one that you've tried it with, and Corey's kind of also confirmed that in his head, like the eggs are just going to be too big to go into the fine,
for sure,
the fine foam. Okay.
Yeah, I use the fine. I'm actually moving most of my shrimp tanks in the shrimp room over to the fine sponge filter, because you know how shrimp, they'll constantly eat mulm and they'll make it finer and finer and finer. And over time, the coarse sponge filter can't pick it up anymore. But that's mostly just for like shrimp tanks, right? Sure. All the fish tanks I use coarse. So lucky for me, I have tons of extra sponges. So I didn't have to buy a bunch of extra units because I'm making that swap already. So
nice. Yeah. And then the other trick too was you actually have to pull you distance it a certain distance, right, from the back. You don't push it fully against the glass.
Yeah, so you want it 1 fish body length away from the corner, so they can go sideways next to the filter to breed on it, but not perpendicular, so they can pick at it and eat the eggs once they have laid on the back of the sponge. Right. Okay. So that's like really, I don't know if that's super important. That's just like my head canon. Right. But I know for a fact that they still try and get back there and eat on them. So anything that you can do to dissuade them from actually eating the eggs, and you have a wall in your aquarium. So definitely jam it up against the wall and just give them 1 body length. And that's going to be your best bet.
Gotcha. Have you, and not that you've got limitless time right now with how busy you are, but have you ever done an experiment of having the sponge filter right in the center of the tank and then in the corner, as you described it, to see yield differences?
No, because this works so well. Like I'm absolutely maxing out the breeder boxes in 3 rotations, and 3 rotations is when the first hatch out is big enough to eat the fry of the most recent ones hatching out, right? So I don't need to play around with the strategy because it just works perfectly. And by the time the 3rd rotation happens, I have way too many fish in the breeder box anyway.
And I mean, and Luminatus is such a popular fish too. I mean, it's such a great size. It's so colorful. They're vibrant. They're so active. Awesome fish.
Nothing beats a couple of males sparring each other when their fins go up and they're just fully fired up. They're a really fun fish to have, even just for display.
What are you feeding them? So once they come out, are you doing the standard golden pearls until they get to a size that's large enough to eat like a baby brine shrimp or shameless plug magic small fish feed, something like that?
I feed ceramicron powder to the newborns, and then but the whole system gets baby brine shrimp twice a day. And then I'll do the magic small fish feed and fluval bug bites. That's usually my rotation. And then I'll play around with other foods and see what they like. I'm hatching, or not hatching, but I have some grindle worm colonies but the core tenets of the food program here is magic small fish feed, fluval bug bites, and I hatch a tablespoon and a half of brine shrimp every day.
Yeah.
And everyone gets a taste of that.
Bug bites, honestly, like we would probably still carry bug bites if Fluval could have just kept it in stock. Like that was just such a struggle with them to keep that food in stock. But I don't know. I guess black soldier fly larvae in Canada don't, want to reproduce at a rate to, keep us in stock for it. But I don't know. I'm glad you're able to get it and you're enjoying it because it is a good food for sure.
So they have that big bucket of it, but it's the medium granular, and they're pretty tough, so it's hard to crunch up to a good size. I wish they had a big bucket in that light blue label, the smaller.
That was our jam, was the light blue tropical label.
Yeah, because you get a little dust and bigger particles in that one. So if you're feeding like nano to medium sized fish, you can feed the whole tank, right? And everyone can get a piece, right? So
man.
I
feel like, and maybe Corey even talked to you about this while we were there, but like having you in our internal testers program, like, man, how do we get Anthony, like, just send him foods that we think, we'll feel pretty confident about, like, just get it in your hands, let you play with it and get some feedback from you.
Yeah, dude, like, send it, whatever you want to send.
Here's a free 5-pound bucket of food, Anthony. Try it out. Feed your fish room for a month for free.
I definitely do that. I mean, I love playing around with all types of food, and I know you guys, the R&D you do before you fully release a product, like nothing I've tried from you over the last couple of years. Like the community pellet's great. Magic small fish feed is like a literal game changer for me anyway, and I know it's been super successful for you guys. So dude, if you're cooking up something new, send it, because I'll use it. I know it's going to be good.
For sure, man. All right, other breeding projects. I don't want to get yelled at again, like, oh, this is just a commercial for them. I think somebody commented they didn't realize that I actually work for Aquarium Co-op, which I thought was kind of fun.
Really?
Yeah. What I mean, I guess I could see, like, in how I do my corny, like, sponsors spot, like, the way I phrase it, sure, but I'm at work right now. I'm on the clock, and I get the opportunity to keep this podcast going. So I'm thankful for the position that I'm in to be able to do it. So all right, back to your fish breeding, because I'm still just so enamored by it. Pea puffers. Like, I don't know too many people that openly share their experience breeding pea puffers, but you're doing it. So how are you breeding pea puffers?
So pea puffers are actually pretty easy, but they're finicky at the same time. So they're an egg scatterer, and they don't have sticky eggs like the Luminatus do. So for any egg scattering fish, I use my automatic egg catcher. And there's a lot of different iterations on that. The first one I ever saw was Blake's Aquatics in Australia. And he had a 3D printed egg catcher that I loved, but I wanted to make my own because I knew I could put it to good use and kind of make my own spin on it, right? So I developed that over a year ago. And what I found most successful for pea puffers is 2 males and like 4 or 5 females. Put them in a 10-gallon, put that moss on top of the automatic egg catcher, or even if you don't have an automatic egg catcher, you can do like a cup of marbles with like some yarn in it, and then they'll breed on top of the moss. But yeah, they're pretty easy. But what I found, so my first generation up here, this is only the first time that I've bred them like in mass. So I've probably got 50 up there growing out. And I just threw an egg catcher in there just to see if, like, oh my God, there's 50 pea puffers. Maybe I'll get like 1 billion eggs. And the funny thing about that is the more pea puffers is not mo better, right? So
not mo better. I love it.
Not mo better, right? So you definitely want to figure out like the best mix of male and female. I think 1 male and like 3 females might be the way to go, or like 2 males and like 4 females. So right now I've got a lot of projects going on, so I'm not super focused on that because again, the fish breeding is like my hobby. You know what I mean? So, but I have 2 females and a male doing their thing up here in another tank. But I haven't gotten many eggs out of them. So I'm going to do another male and another 2 females and go to 2 and 4. But yeah, man, I'm just playing around, like
it's awesome. No, it's great.
Yeah. There's a lot of fish that I try that I can't breed in like super large numbers. And for me, that's fun. But like, I really love like large, huge amount of fish. So like something that I failed on recently, because not a lot of people share their failures, but I like to, because it can give people good ideas of maybe avenues they don't want to go down, was the chili rasbora. So and it's not that I couldn't breed a couple of them, but I couldn't spawn them like in mass, right? So I just threw them in a display tank, and I think it's because they have pretty high requirements for like water quality. So I actually rock bot. This is going to get a little technical, but my
Sure.
TDS out of the tap here is 70 TDS. It comes out about 6.5 pH and 70 TDS. So it's really soft water. Hence
Interesting.
all the soft water fish in my fish room, right?
You're in Florida. I would have thought you would have had liquid rock, right?
Most people do, but what you don't realize is that it really is dependent on your municipality's water supply. My water treatment plant is 100 yards from my house, so I get and they filter it really well, right? So it only travels a short way to my house, and it's 70 TDS year round out of the pipes. So I knew that right away that, okay, well, I'm going to breed a ton of rams, right? Because I don't have to do anything to my water. But Chili Rasboras, they, just like a neon tetra, when they're bred at like a wholesaler, they like spawn them in like 0 TDS water. So I did that. I went through the whole process of like dropping their, TDS to 0, and I bred a couple, but like that's great. I'm happy I did it, but it's like not what I was aiming for. So I consider that a failure. So those are kind of sidelined in a display tank. And
when you had them in the fish room, what was your setup? Were you going for egg collector? What's their egg scatters?
So I thought, because there's not a lot of people breeding Chili Rasboras, right? So I actually thought that they were egg scatterers. But I think they're actually egg scatterers, but they have slightly sticky eggs. So it's not going to make it through the moss into the bottom of the cup, right? So I think that's why I didn't get a lot of them when I tried to breed them. So that's just a learning experience. There's other ways to breed fish. Like scarlet badis is another example of a fish that I'm really successful at breeding now. I think if you were to set up my Chili Rasbora with the scarlet badis 50 lowboy that I was able to successfully breed in and kept the water super soft, I bet I can make 100 of them, but they're not like my favorite fish. So to dedicate a whole 50 lowboy in the garage to like a Chili Rasbora is not the same for me as like a scarlet badis, which is like my like passion project of all,
Yeah. So let's put a pin in the scarlet badis, because I want to go back to that, but I want to kind of close the loop on the pea puffers. So in my head, pea puffer fry should be as difficult as like Shodentai Congo spotted puffer fry, right? Like in my head, they're going to come out just infinitely small, and you're feeding them like infusoria and paramecium. Is that true or no? What's
they're a little bit bigger than the Shodentai eggs. They're like little gold balls, man, and they come out and they'll pick at like prepared foods. But what I like to do for the pea puffers is make sure the tank's just been set up forever. There's tons of copepods. I use moss from another tank that's just full of microbiology, copepods, tons of little worms, detritus worms. And then I'll also very early on either feed them paramecium or just start dosing a little bit of baby brine and then observing over the course of an hour or so just to see if they're even picking at it when they're that small. Okay. And they do, because they're just like in the wild, they eat snails, right?
Right.
So their natural instinct is to pick at things. They're really, like, if you keep them in a community tank, they're really great, like
nipping.
They're nip curious. That's what I like to call them. They're not aggressive, but they will use their mouth when they want to like check something out, right? So like if you keep them with like pygmy cories, you're going to see a lot of missing tails on the top because they're coming behind and they're nipping. They're nipping curious. So but yeah, not to go off on a tangent, but paramecium is the best food for them. And I've Lowell, Lowell's Fish Lab, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's got a great method for growing paramecium cultures. And then to get a starter culture, I've considered starting to sell some of my cultures, but Carolina Biological is a great place to get paramecium. And pro tip, if you're confused about what type of paramecium to buy, because there's a lot of different types, you want to get paramecium caudatum. Okay. Randy, you can probably pull that up if you want, like the exact
spelling. I'm gonna check it out right now. Paramecium.
But that's the paramecium that you can see visibly with your eye. so you can see how the colony is thriving, how much you have in a colony. And it's still plenty small to feed even the smallest fish, like Shodenai puffers or any of the nano fish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because if you go to Carolina, they actually just have carolina.com. Like that seems pretty impressive that they're able to secure that URL. So yeah, when you go to Paramecium, living, you get, oh, and I'm going to butcher these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options of specimen: Aurelia, Bursaria, Caudatum, Micro,
Caudatum, the one.
You pronounce it Caudatum? Okay. Micro something conjugating, and then Tetrarelia. Man, so I could totally see how if somebody would like hear that and be like, okay, I'm gonna go to Carolina, or if they Google it, like there's Paramecium, I'm gonna spend $10 on it and probably spend another $10-15 on shipping, and then have a terrible time of it, which to me kind of feels like maybe you should sell some online to like help out people that are wanting to breed fish. Go directly to Daku, get your Paramecium, and you're going to get the exact one that you need.
Yeah, for sure. You know what's funny? I love the Caudatum, and in the shrimp room occasionally, because there's no predators in there, right? There's no fish eating that type of stuff. Some of the best food for nano fish breeding is what naturally occurs in like a shrimp breeding tank after like 6 months or a year. You get seed shrimp, you get all different types of Paramecium just naturally occurring. And I think I tried to show you guys while you were here. I'm not sure if Corey got it on camera when he was doing the first 2 parts filming himself, but there's 2 tanks in my shrimp room with just massive Paramecium colonies. And I've been feeding that. I just go in with a cup and, just go around to the breeder boxes. I just dip it right into the shrimp tanks and just hit all the breeder boxes. And that works really well too.
Which, if you didn't know, you would just think it's kind of cloudy water. Like, he needs to maybe do a bigger water change on this one. But it's just a cloud of Paramecium all in the tank. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, that's super cool. All right, so scarlet badis then. So you're saying 50 low boy. What are you doing with scarlet badis? And I think for other context, your logo is the scarlet badis.
It is. That's like the fish that I fell in love with because I love nano fish, and the personality on a scarlet badis is like, it's like a bigger fish, right? They're almost like a dwarf cichlid in personality. So they're really curious. They'll come up to the glass. They eat really aggressively. So you'll see if you like do baby brine shrimp or like worms, they're like right there just smashing them.
Micro predator.
Micro predator for sure, right? So it took me a lot of years to breed them in mass, right? I've always been able to, well, first of all, let's back up. It took me 2 years to find a female, which is the hardest thing about breeding scarlet badis, or one of the hardest things, is finding a female because they're never brought in. So one tip for finding a female, I won't bore you with the 75 subdominant males that I purchased over the 2 years. There's one big tip. Get in touch with like the buyer of your local fish store, the guy that is bringing the fish in, and tell him you'll like throw him a couple of bucks. Don't get him in trouble, but give me a call when the scarlet badis come in, and specifically the scarlet badis that are not juvies and have 0 orange on them. Rule of thumb, in my experience now working with scarlet badis for a number of years, any orange at all, subdominant male. Completely drab gray fish, good chance, and it's older, right? Like at least that like ½ inch plus, good chance it's a female. So do that, right? And then I think I forgot where were we going with that? I wanted to kind of give the...
Yeah. We're talking about how you bred them. But on that note, though, so the idea being that they're so drab that the importers, the people that are breeding these things and sending them to the States to be sold, they're purposely excluding the females because they're so drab and that they're not going to sell, right? Like people want a colorful fish. Not everybody's going to be breeding them. Or do you think it's they're trying to hold back the females so that people in the States, it's just purely this is what the customer wants. They want pretty fish. And then like we're accidentally introducing females into a group of 100, maybe 1 or 2 females slip into it.
So they're daily spawners and they don't produce a lot of eggs at one time, and they'll actively eat the eggs as they're falling from the female. So they're a very difficult fish to spawn, just period. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me they're mostly wild caught, right? So
Okay.
it doesn't make a lot of sense for me for them to like actively exclude the females. Other than the fact that they're just drab and they're not beautiful, colorful orange, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that it's a malicious intent because it's really hard to breed like a lot of scarlet badis, and they're not the most expensive fish either.
So maybe while they're wild catching them, the collectors are just tossing the females back then, or the most drab ones, just tossing them back. Okay.
That's what I think, honestly.
Yeah. Which, if they're doing that for the wild population, that's not the worst then, right? Because you don't need many males. You know, if you've still got if you've got a healthy female population, you'll still have reproduction. So I guess that's kind of a good thing then for them being wild caught.
So
super neat.
So once you do get a female, then the other hard part begins, right? So I've done it a couple of different ways. I've used my automatic egg catcher, which netted me a couple of fish, nothing crazy. I've set up like a 5-gallon tank with a false bottom, like a wire mesh false bottom. That was pretty successful. And they also will colony spawn. I was successful with black tiger badis in a 5-gallon tank. So I said, all right, I don't want to deal with like a lot of work. I don't want to be looking for eggs, siphoning the gravel, trying to collect eggs. So I went out and I got one of the Zoomed 50 low boys, or they were actually nice enough to give me a couple of them, right? So they delivered them to me. I set them up in my garage. I auto water changed them. And I set one up with sand and a ton of dragonstone. And I specifically look for dragonstone down at my landscape supply store, which is another pro tip. Dragonstone you can buy at most landscape supply stores. So go out there and grab some for cheap. They're like $2.50 a pound. So I picked a bunch of dragonstone with deep holes in it, and I just set up an aquascape in there. So the fry had places to escape the parents. And then it took me like probably about a month until I saw my first fry, and then they just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And now there's got to be 100 juvies growing out in that
there's
first
a lot.
50 low boy.
There's a lot of them.
That's like out of all the things that I'm working on here, all the black ram, all the ram lines, the blue black rams I'm working on, the scarlet badis breeding in mass is like, that's like the biggest feather in my cap for my hobby breeding. And I want to put this out now because I get blown up constantly for females. I have no immediate plans to like sell them like regularly. But I'm going to set up another 50 low boy in the same exact way. So maybe in like a year, I'll have way more than I care to keep in my own breeding group. And then I'll start putting them on the website. So the best way to like look out for that is to just periodically check the fish page on my website.
Okay.
That's where you're going to see if I'm selling them or not, because I'm not going to like piecemeal a couple of the people in DMs, right? It just, I don't have time for that anymore. So I definitely will sell some eventually. It just depends on how successful that second breeding operation is, you know?
What if, ironically, in your conditions, they only produce females?
Honestly, wouldn't be the worst scenario because
for sure, yeah.
Males are easy to get.
Yeah.
And I actually plan on getting more males from like a wholesaler because I don't want to just breed my genetics back to each other, right? I like to diversify the genetics. So I'll definitely be doing that for sure.
So what was your group size? You had the one female, and then a pair.
That's why I was so happy when this happened, because like I said, over like 4 or 5 years, they only live 2 to 3 years, right? So and they could have an illness and die early.
Yep.
So over that time period, I actually got down to 2 females. So I put one in a display tank with a bunch of plants, figuring I'll make a couple more that way, because they will spawn with one pair in like a 10-gallon just loaded with moss, for instance. You will get a couple. So I did that as like my fail safe. And then my last pair that was breeding in my automatic egg catcher tank that I had set up for them, that's the pair that I put outside in the 50 low boy. So it was one pair in that 50 low boy.
Yeah. That's a big that's a big landscape investment. I mean, that's basically a whole shelf of a rack dedicated to that fish, which is pretty awesome. So like if you were focusing on that one and you really wanted to churn out some scarlet badis, would you start netting out the fry and moving them to kind of their own separate grow out tanks?
So the way that tank's set up, if I were to have to collect this current like juvie batch that's growing out in there, I would need to break down the tank. Which that's why I decided it would be just easier to pull one pair out and just start shuffling them to the other 50 low boys that I have in the garage.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you saw how the other 50 low boys in the garage were set up. They're just plants, right? So I have like the plant cells so the plants can sit upright in the 50 low boys. That's actually just as good as Dragonstone. So I'm just going to take a pair of Scarlet Badis and just dump them in the plant tanks, and I'm sure I'll get tons of fry there too. At least I'm hoping I will.
No, that's super awesome, man. I love that. Do you have any interest in the blue Badis?
Not particularly. If I'm not mistaken, the blue Badis are a little bit bigger. If I were to do another Badis type, I'd bring back in the black tiger Badis. That's the red-headed with the black body, or black body red-headed. I can't picture it now, but those were actually really easy to breed in a 5-gallon. And little bit of interesting info for them. Their females aren't drab like a scarlet Badis. So their females are actually, they color up just like the males, so they can't be cherry picked when they're wild caught. So if you buy a group of 10 black tiger Badis, chances are you're going to have some females in the mix.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, very cool. I'm just checking them out right now. Yeah, I've never kept scarlet Badis, tiger Badis. I just learned about the blue Badis when I was talking with Ethan from Fishmania in Tennessee. No,
they're beautiful fish. The blue Badis are definitely pretty.
All right, let's see here. Okay, awesome, man. Well, we're rolling up on 51 minutes, so I'll try and wrap this up with you, Anthony. So you got the rest of your busy day to get back at it. What does maintenance look like for you now? So you got over 100 tanks. What does your maintenance schedule look like? Having auto water change has got to be an absolute game changer that can enable having that many tanks. But what are you doing day in and day out to keep up with your tanks?
Automatic water change is critical to scale. There's no other way to do it. Plants help a lot. But for a long time, it was tackle the biggest fire as it arises, right? Luckily, most of my planted tanks are self-sustaining with water changes. And that's just scraping the glass occasionally and siphoning up any excessive mulm. So those are really easy. For a display tank, it's a little bit more involved. You know, you got to clean the filter and stuff. But my day-to-day, I do have an employee now who helps me tremendously with that. He's amazing with cleaning fish tanks. So, but yeah, we just try and stay up on it as best as possible. But the best thing that you can do, grow tons of healthy plants. That is going to extend your maintenance timeline by 3 to 5x, right? Yeah. So less algae will grow, the fish will thrive, there won't be a huge nitrate buildup. Make sure you dose with fertilizer. Easy Green's great. For an operation this size, I wish I could use Easy Green because it's so simple, but I need to mix my own dry powders nowadays. It's just way too expensive to like buy jugs of pre-made fertilizer, you know. But if you've got like 10 to 20 fish tanks, Easy Green is great. And yeah, dude, just you got to stay on top of it. That's it. Yeah. You know, I'm actively working this fish room every day, so it's not that insurmountable of a task, but there's definitely days where it's like time to clean and it's most of the day, you know.
If you didn't do social media, would you keep your breeding tanks, like your grow out fish tanks, as clean as you do, or would you kind of let those go a little bit? Because I feel like my answer would be absolutely, which I did.
Yeah, no, they go from time to time, you know. You ever watch like power washing videos, like time lapses, or like people cutting grass on like social media?
Dude, the rug cleaning ones are, for some reason, rug cleaning is very addictive to watch.
Yeah. So I purposely let some of these tanks go because some of my highest engagement videos is that like full clean top to bottom. And it's just because there's something in brains where they're like, dirty tank, and then 60 seconds later, spotless tank. And it's the same thing as like power washing and carpet cleaning and lawn cutting. So, but you asked if I didn't have social media. Yeah, dude, this is crazy, the amount of care that I have to put in to make sure you can see into the tanks. Yeah, I would go through a lot less razor blades, that's for sure.
Nice.
You know?
That's hilarious. And because I'm such a fan of fish breeding, what is on your list? Like, what's your bucket list of fish that you want to breed? What's something maybe on the near term horizon where you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to bring this one in? I know you said the tiger bat is bringing it back in, but maybe something you haven't worked with before that you'd really like to?
I don't have anything in the pipeline because I need to temper my own, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't overextend. I've been in situations where I like go super hard and like bring in 4 or 5 different types of fish. And over the course of my journey, right, I've bred like pygmy cories and like orange Venezuelan cories, but they don't ship super great unless you like freak them out and let them release their toxins, which is a whole nother podcast if you want to do that one. But like, I would say the biggest like project that I have on the horizon is getting my blue-black ram as blue as humanly possible. Right. So I'm like 5 generations deep. And last year I had an amazing spawn with a ton of blue on the sides, and they were mostly infertile. So then I had to take a step back and like go back and like mix in different genetics while still trying to retain the blue. So out of all the projects that I'm looking towards, that's like my long-term goal, which is just produce the best blue-black ram that I possibly can.
Because right now you're feeling that the current midnight black ram, dark night ram, whatever the name is for the fish these days, they're initially when they came over just too black for you, too murdered out, and so you're working to bring that iridescent blue back into the fish that like a German blue ram naturally has.
Yeah, I mean, I love those too. I have many independent lines of like the midnight dark ram, but this is something that's mine that I've been working on, right? And it's just breed for maximum blue. So that's like a project, right? All the fish breeding is like, what do I want to do? And if you like it, when they're ready, they'll be available. That's like my whole fish breeding MO is I'm doing what I want to do. And if you love what I do, here's an opportunity occasionally when it's not like at the frozen tundra during the holidays where you can buy my fish. Right now, I'm only shipping in Florida for the remainder of the holidays. You know,
it's the scale
fish anyway. Ship everything else.
The scale is different, but I like watching Alex Steele. He's this English guy, and he's a blacksmith. And one of the things that he does is he loves to experiment with all these different types of like forging methods and Damascus. And I'm going to try this technique and this. And he'll produce things, and then he throws it up on his website for people to be able to buy. Like he made his own coins, right? He forges them, made a stamp and stamped them, makes 100 of them, throws them on his website, and then his viewers can buy them up. You know, maybe he'll make like a really intricate knife or something, throw it up on his website, and then once it's gone, it's gone. It feels very similar to that, where you're like, hey man, I'm doing this thing, I'm enjoying it, I want you to come along with me for the ride. And here's my version of the thing that you can buy. You can actually buy the fish that I'm breeding that you've watched me work with, which I think is just super awesome.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely the way that this has progressed. You know, plants will forever be my number one as far as business goes. I can ship them in the winter. I'm not super limited. Like it's really hard to have like a fish only business.
Yeah.
You know, because shipping is really excessive for people, which I'm totally aware of. Like I only ship my fish overnight. It's a lot of money to like have a business shipping fish unless you take a lot of risks and you like put them in the post office, which isn't super reliable and all that stuff. So yeah, the way that I've kind of fell into it is work on projects that I like, and you can sign up for email notifications on the website, right? So when they're available, you'll get a little ping. And if you're ready for them and you've been looking at them for a long time, I'll ship them safely to you, right? I won't take risks with my fish. So
no, I don't envy shipping fish at all. I've done it at least how many times have I shipped fish? Maybe 2 or 3 times. And it's very, very nerve wracking. And it was never for like money. It was just, oh, my angelfish, one of my friends in the industry, he wanted some years ago. So he paid to have them overnighted, but it's just a whole stressful thing, right? Like, did I put enough water in? Is the temperature right? Is there going to be a delay? And, back then I want to say that was pre-COVID, and just, anything during and post-COVID shipping wise has just gotten very unreliable. USPS has not been the best lately. Surprisingly, Amazon shipping has actually been pretty darn good. But that has not been without its own challenges also. So hats off to anybody shipping fish. Not everybody has access to a good local fish store that quarantines and has good, healthy fish. I think we can all raise our hands and say, yep, I've been into plenty of fish stores where I would not touch a single fish in that fish store if I had to. Like I'm buying online. Like I'm not bringing anything home for to my fish room from that store.
You can't beat a homebred fish.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's another beautiful thing. Like you're homebred, especially if you're somebody local in Florida that can match your water parameters, or somebody else that can match those. I mean, they're bred in your fish room. That's phenomenal. Like you can't, like you just said, you can't get any better. It's just like going to your fish club, right? Oh, Billy Bob's selling his, I don't know, his killifish. He's got great killifish, like swooping them up. You know exactly where they're coming from.
For sure. Yeah.
So awesome, Anthony. Well, thank you so much, man. You've given me an hour of your time. I appreciate it. Tell Sky your dog is wonderful. She is on the fence about me still. Such a bummer, but she was an awesome dog to hang out with. She kind of warmed up to me a little bit at the end, but she's a sweet dog. And your iguanas too. Yeah, give your iguanas my regards.
Randy, there was an iguana in my garage this morning.
Oh my goodness!
I had to take it out. No, my God,
okay.
No. They squeeze in where the airlines go out of the vent for the rice fish ponds outside.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the rice fish. Oh, goodness.
Dude, I love yapping with you guys.
Yeah.
Like, let's do this again for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just want to say one thing. It was really an honor to have you and Corey come to the house. I've been you guys have been a huge inspiration for me, like for a long time. And to like open the door and it's like Corey and Randy, I'm like, this is surreal. And it's really awesome that you're like putting a spotlight on home businesses and stuff like that. So I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, guys. Like, make sure you tell Corey. I'm sure we'll talk more too over the holidays, but dude, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anthony, you have a great one. And again, watch out for those iguanas.
Talk to you later, Randy.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, buddy.